Thank you both so much for joining us. And James, I'll start with you. Has Donald Trump made America great again?
You know, I think it's important to remember that the dissatisfaction with Washington, D.C. by people in the country, and I think that's been going on for a long time. So that's really the end result of him being elected last year, was the dissatisfaction in D.C. We haven't really passed any meaningful legislation since Obamacare in 2009. We haven't passed budgets in the last 15 years. And so I think the American people sent a message to the establishment basically saying, hey, you guys aren't doing your job. We're going to send you this unconventional candidate, now president, and see if you can work with him. And I think that, certainly President Trump has a very different style and approach to Washington, but I also think that he's struggled in terms from campaigner to governing, and I think that's where the rubber meets the road a little bit. And I think that's why you saw some of the election results you saw last night is, while people still probably have confidence in President Trump doing things a little bit differently, I think they're looking for him now to kind of turn the corner and accomplish a few things.
James, Parliament does have a point in terms of that, the economic record of Donald Trump. Jobs, the economy is doing quite well in the States right now. So there is that positive side in terms of what Donald Trump has achieved since he's been in the White House.
I think that a lot of conservatives, members of the Federalist Society, were willing to support President Trump, given the fact that he would have the opportunity to appoint a judge to the Supreme Court. So I think certainly getting Judge Gorsuch on the court was important for a lot of conservatives, and they're very satisfied with the job that President Trump is doing on other judges' appointments around the country at the federal and district circuits. So I think that is something that is a pretty big accomplishment. However, I would say that it is incumbent on the White House to work with Congress to be a player in passing legislation. I think it's very easy to say we want a tax cut, but the devil is always in the details in terms of what that is. I think that the idea of a corporate tax cut makes sense if in fact that money will come back to the U.S. and will be reinvested to spur jobs, to modernize factories. I think that they are in a little bit of trouble in terms of what is a middle-class tax cut and what does that look like. I think there's a little bit of frustration around that, and I think Republicans are hoping that President Trump can work with him a little bit more directly on that, as well as Democrats. I heard from a lot of Democrats this morning that are hoping that after last night that they can see a little bit more cooperation from the president, going forward and try to pass the agenda. I think, health care and immigration are other two pretty big critical issues, and it's not as easy to just kind of direct traffic from behind the desk. You really need to kind of get in the weeds and work on these things, with the Hill and other stakeholders in Washington if, in fact, you are going to pass things. And I would say, from a foreign policy standpoint, certainly President Trump is in South Korea, heading to China and talking about North Korea. And he almost has a George Bush tone, if you will, in the early days post 9/11 in terms of, positioning the U.S. as a strong against tyranny and terror and those kind of things. But I think that largely we haven't seen a larger strategy, within the Middle East and, kind of what he wants to do there or not want to do there outside of decertifying Iran and, asking NATO to pay up in terms of what their bills are. So I think, we've had a lot of short, but I think what we need to see from President Trump is a lot more long-term planning and policies, especially when it comes to immigration and issues here at home. Certainly the economy has been doing better, but we need to know what the next steps are.
James, Norton, good talking to you both. Thank you.